I don't think it's fair if a Christian just berates feminism and says feminism bad, feminism bad. You need to know where it came from. You need to know what it was a response to. Mary Wollstonecraft was identified as the proto-feminist. So feminism wasn't quite a thing yet, but you dig into the crates of history and you find out that she's the proto-feminist who, and she's a writer, philosopher, and advocate of what they call women's rights at the time, but it was just promiscuity. But it wasn't only that. So her first work was called The Vindication of Rights of Men, which was a treatise on the French Revolution in support of the French Revolution, a vindication of the rights of men. But then she came out with another work after that called A Vindication of the Rights of Women. And so now that's like kind of her coming out as the proto-feminist, really. And a little background on her, she married a man named William Godwin, who was an English journalist and political philosopher and novelist. And, you know, he slept around, she slept around, stuff like that. But they slept together, ended up having a child, and they ended up getting married to prevent the illegitimacy of the child. And that child was Mary Shelley. You know that name?
No.
Frankenstein, wrote Frankenstein.
Oh.
Mary Shelley. And so Mary Shelley, you know, was raised around Godwin, who was also a part of a group of like secular intellectualists and things like that. And Godwin was the strong advocate of the free love, and he's against the institution of marriage. And his friend Percy Shelley, who is already married, spent a lot of time around him and Mary. So he ended up leaving his wife and taking Mary. That's Godwin and Mary Wollstonecraft's daughter.
Right.
So Percy left his wife, left his pregnant wife, took Mary, and ran away with Mary. But he did write back later on to his wife and said, "Hey, you should come join us." And she's like, "Nah, I'm good." So Percy and Mary had a child, but that child unfortunately died, had another child. And they ended up raising that child. And all of this took place before Mary Shelley was 18. That's wild. She also wrote Frankenstein in that time. Just, you know. So even in this...
What in the world?
Yeah. She was a product of the learning environment, even with a depraved, you know, kind of lifestyle. So after that, you have first wave feminism. And that's women's suffrage. It's anti-temperance. So that's anti-discretion, really, anti-discipline. And you have anti-prohibition. This is in the States. So over in Europe, you've got free love, sex for everybody, everywhere. And over here, you've got, look, drunkenness. Let's go out and have fun. Get into prohibition and all that stuff. Like, so you had Elizabeth Stanton, who was more of the brains of feminism, and Susan B. Anthony was the face of feminism. Susan wasn't married. Elizabeth was. So Susan had the freedom to be the face of it. And so they tackled those things. They tackled women's suffrage, temperance, and anti-prohibition. And the reason they tackled those things is because they wanted to be able to do whatever they wanted to do. They didn't want to be prohibited from that type of freedom of being able to drink, being able to curse and swear however you want, dress however you want. Like that discipline nonsense and that modesty nonsense, get rid of it. But there was one natural hindrance that existed. It was called pregnancy. It was a hindrance on their lives. So in comes Margaret Sanger, who seems to try to fix that. And, you know, she removes the speed bump of childbearing from the equation of ultimate happiness. And then we move forward and we go post-World War II with all these different ideologies. These people are pumping out ideologies in the airwaves. And post-World War II led to hard times in Europe, but it led to some flourishing times in the United States. You know, the society ended up booming. And as a result of booming society, you had like leisure lifestyles began, suburbia began. And a part of this leisure lifestyle for mostly majority white middle upper class women in suburban culture, there was a lot of leisure time, and they ended up reading a lot of toxic information. I'm saying this very generally. It was the old idiom, because life started becoming very easy. I've been talking about this is like the refrigerator and the microwave, or
Oh, right.
things like that.
Yeah.
Like, things are becoming easy.
Mhm.
Women aren't working with their hands in the same way that they once did before these automatic things
Mhm.
existed. Um, let me just say this. So, there was an author of um, um, I believe this is a magazine, The Feminine Mystique, Betty Friedan, and she said this, and this is what ended up resonating with all the women who, after all the leisure, after being given the lifestyle of ease, they got bored with the ease. They got ungrateful. And this is what Betty said. She said, each suburban wife struggles with it alone. As she made beds, shopped for groceries, matched flipped covered material, ate peanut butter sandwiches with their children, chauffeured Cub Scouts and brownies, laid beside her husband at night, she was afraid to ask even of herself the silent question, is this all? Is this all? It's discontentment. But there were a lot of women who um, resonated with that. And from that, on top of that foundation and the prior foundations that were being laid throughout the years, feminism, first wave feminism was born. It's like, look, this is unsatisfying. This isn't good. That old idiom that hard times, which is the world wars,
Mhm.
create strong men.
Right.
Strong men create easy times.
Mhm.
Easy times create weak men. And I think people aren't going to like me saying this, but that aspect of the zeitgeist being women discontentment with their lifestyles and demanding more and wanting more out of life, that's a result of weak men.
Yeah.
Feminism is a response to weak men. How do I know that? The other idiom, happy wife.
Yeah. Happy life.
Yeah,
why.
that's dumb.
That's why.
That's dumb. I mean, that's probably one of the most demeaning things you could say about your wife, I think. That all I care about is you being happy so that you can stay out my way.
Right. Yeah.
And then my life can be happy.
Right. Right.
And if your wife is nothing but someone to be pacified, then you're going to try to pacify her. Or maybe you have the more romantic side of it, where it's like, I just want to give her the world. And I want to make her happy, and I don't want to ever displease her. You think very highly of yourself if you think you can do that. So I think that men try to answer that challenge, and they thought that the purpose of their role in their marriage was to please their wives to the full, sufficiently so. Pleasure from spouse to spouse is a fruit of marriage. It's not the purpose of it.
Mhm.
It's a fruit of marriage. It's not the purpose of it. So feminism is the fruit of an uncherished wife by a biblical husband who loves her, edifies her. I'm sorry. Feminism is the fruit of an uncherished wife by a biblical husband who maybe I just wrote this wrong. Oh, feminism is not the fruit. Feminism is not the fruit of an uncherished wife by a biblical husband who loves her and edifies her and shepherds her. Rather, feminism is the fruit of a husband who aimed to please her and please her sufficiently. And there is no man who can do that. And I'm not saying that in a sexual context. I'm saying that in a holistic context. Thinking that your wife needs you to fill the God-sized hole in her heart. Okay. So that's important. Just for giggles, let's listen to this quick clip because this is the fruit of feminism that came as a result. This is Ashley Judd.
I am a nasty woman. This is not a feminist myth. This is inequality. So we are not here to be debunked. We are here to be respected. We are here to be nasty.
So I think that's disgusting.
What does she mean?
Yeah, that's anti-scripture. That's anti-Bible. That's anti-Proverbs 31. That's anti-womanhood. That's anti what God intended you to be. That's anti at last, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bones. It's anti all of that. But that's empowerment.
I don't know what that means.
Who knows? Who knows, man? Who
And they're
knows?
cheering.
So I want to move on. I'm not going to dwell on that long, but I'll end that segment saying I don't think it's fair if a Christian just berates feminism and says feminism bad, feminism bad. You need to know where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what it was a response to. It was a response, honestly, to a bunch of women feeling like they were made for something more than ironing pants.
Right.
And they were.
Mm-hmm.
They were. Man. And I'm not saying that that's demeaning. That's beautiful if you serve your husband that way. But if that's the only thing you do, that more thing is honoring the Lord, worshiping him, finding your purpose in him, rearing children and raising them and nourishing them in the knowledge of the Lord, that they would do the same. That's fulfilling. It's hard. Marriage is hard, but honoring him and glorifying him is fulfilling. And they weren't shepherded into that.